The camera sees everything. Tracy Scott didn't know that when she collapsed into the butter-soft leather chair at 3:47 a.m., exhausted beyond reason, body screaming for just 5 minutes of rest. She didn't know that every corner of the 68th floor was monitored. That every breath she took was being watched. By him. Kang Mi-ho, billionaire, sociopath, the most feared man in Chicago's Korean underground, watched the black woman sleeping in his chair with an expression that would have terrified her if she could see it. Not anger. Worse. Fascination. Because in 20 years, no one had touched that chair. No one had dared enter his private sanctuary. His obsessive-compulsive disorder made sure of that. One fingerprint out of place, one molecule of disorder, and heads rolled. Sometimes literally. But this woman, sleeping in his space, breathing his air, disturbing his perfect order. She just sealed her fate. And she had no idea what was coming. Welcome to a story that's about to consume your entire night. I'm talking dark, twisted, morally complicated, and absolutely addictive. If you love the Zara and Daesung series, this is going to blow your mind. Before we dive in, like this video right now, I promise you'll forget to do it later because you'll be too hooked. Subscribe and hit that bell because this story is intense, and you don't want to miss a second. Now, let's meet Tracy and Mi-ho. Tracy Scott had been awake for 22 hours straight. Her body had stopped sending pain signals around hour 19. Now there was just numbness. The kind of exhaustion that made your bones feel like they were dissolving, your vision blur at the edges, your thoughts move through molasses. But she couldn't stop. Not yet. She had 4 hours left on her shift at Morrison Elite Building Services, and then she had exactly 45 minutes to get across Chicago to her morning shift at Blessed Hands Nursing Home. After that, if she was lucky, she could sleep for 3 hours before her evening shift serving tables at Jupiter's Soul Food Kitchen. 3 jobs. 7 days a week. No days off. All to pay for her baby sister Shanice's experimental leukemia treatment at Northwestern Memorial. Treatment that insurance wouldn't cover. Treatment that cost $8,000 a month. Treatment that was the only thing keeping her 14-year-old sister alive. You good? Keisha, her supervisor at Morrison, asked as they prepared their carts on the 67th floor. You look like death. I'm fine. Tracy's voice came out hoarse. She cleared her throat. Just tired. Girl, you're always tired. Keisha handed her a bottle of water. Drink. And listen, I need you sharp tonight. You're doing 68. Tracy's head snapped up. The penthouse floor? Mi-ho's floor. Yeah. Keisha's expression was serious. He's in Seoul for the week, so it's actually safe. But that man. Tracy, he's not normal. Everything has to be perfect. Militarily perfect. One thing out of place and Morrison loses the contract. We've lost 3 people to that floor in 6 months. What happened to them? Fired. Or worse. Keisha lowered her voice. Mi-ho isn't just some billionaire, Tracy. He runs half the Korean organizations in the Midwest. Hotels, restaurants, real estate, all legitimate on paper. But underneath? She made a cutting gesture across her throat. People who cross him disappear. And his OCD makes him unpredictable. Violent when things aren't right. Tracy should have been scared. But all she felt was the weight of the premium pay that came with Mi-ho's floor. Double time. Plus hazard bonus. That was an extra $600 for one night's work. That was 2 days of Shanice's medication. I'll take it, Tracy said. You sure? Because I need the money, coolish. I'll be careful. I'll follow every protocol. Keisha studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Okay. But Tracy? Don't touch anything you don't have to. Don't move anything. Don't sit on any furniture. Don't even breathe too hard. Clean exactly according to the checklist and get out. Understand? Understood. The 68th floor was accessed by a private elevator that required a special keycard. The doors opened directly into Mi-ho's domain, 10,000 square feet of minimalist perfection that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Everything was white, black, or chrome. Clean lines. Geometric precision. Not a single item out of place. Even the air felt different up here, filtered, temperature-controlled, almost sterile. Tracy had cleaned luxury spaces before, but this was different. This felt obsessive. Every book on the shelves was arranged by height and color. Every piece of art was positioned at exact angles. Even the throw pillows on the white leather sectional were placed with mathematical precision. This wasn't a home. This was a prison of order. She pulled out her checklist. 48 tasks, each with specific instructions. Dust all surfaces using only the provided microfiber cloths, moving in counterclockwise circles. Vacuum in straight lines from north to south. Windex all glass surfaces using vertical strokes only, then horizontal, then diagonal from top left to bottom right. It was insane. But Tracy had learned long ago that rich people's crazy paid bills. So she started working. 3 hours in, she'd completed 39 tasks. Her feet throbbed. Her back screamed. Her vision kept swimming. She just needed a minute. Just 60 seconds to close her eyes and let her body remember it was human. The office was at the far end of the penthouse, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The furniture here was different. Warmer. A mahogany desk. Bookshelves filled with volumes in Korean, English, and Japanese. And behind the desk, a chair. Not just any chair. A custom-made ergonomic throne in buttery black leather that probably cost more than Tracy made in 6 months. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. But her legs were buckling, and the chair was right there, and Miho was in Seoul, and she just needed 1 minute. Tracy sank into the chair and let her eyes close. The leather embraced her like a lover. The ergonomic design cradled her spine perfectly. For the first time in 22 hours, her body wasn't screaming. Just 1 minute, she told herself. Just one. Kang Miho's phone buzzed at 3:47 a.m. Seoul time. He was in a meeting with the Yakuza representatives, negotiating territory agreements for his West Coast expansion. The meeting was tense. These men didn't take kindly to Korean organizations encroaching on their traditional strongholds. But when Burton's name flashed on his screen, Miho held up one finger to pause the negotiation and answered. Sir. Burton's voice was carefully neutral. His head of security knew better than to call during important meetings unless it was critical. We have a situation at the penthouse. Miho's jaw tightened. What kind of situation? Someone's in your office. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Across the table, the Yakuza representatives noticed the shift in Miho's expression and exchanged glances. Explain. Miho's voice was deadly calm. One of the cleaning staff. She's sitting in your chair, sir. For 3 seconds, Miho didn't breathe. His chair. His private sanctuary. The one space in the world that was perfectly, completely his. Where no one else's molecules mixed with his. Where no one else's fingerprints disrupted his order. Someone was sitting in it. The OCD that lived in his brain like a second consciousness started screaming. Contaminated. Violated. Wrong, 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 wrong. Show me, he said. Burton sent the security feed to his phone. And Miho saw her. A black woman, maybe mid-20s, in a Morrison cleaning uniform. She was asleep in his chair, head tilted back, face relaxed. Even on the grainy feed, he could see the exhaustion written into every line of her body. The dark circles under her eyes. The way her hands, elegant hands, he noticed, were loose in her lap. She was beautiful. The thought came unbidden, and Miho immediately hated himself for it. Beauty was irrelevant. She was an intruder. A contaminant. She'd touched his chair, breathed his air, disrupted his perfect order. She needed to be eliminated. But Miho watched her sleep, and something strange happened in his chest. Something that hadn't moved in 15 years. Curiosity. Because in his experience, people who worked for him were terrified. They followed rules. They knew what he was capable of. They knew that the wrong move meant disappearing. But this woman had fallen asleep in his chair. Either she was cosmically stupid, or she was so exhausted she literally couldn't care about consequences. Sir. Burton's voice pulled him back. Should I have Morrison remove her? Miho should have said yes. Should have had her fired, blacklisted, maybe worse depending on how much his OCD was screaming. But instead, he heard himself say, no. Let her sleep. I want to handle this personally. Sir, you're in Seoul for 3 more days. I'm coming home early. Don't touch her. Don't let Morrison know about this. I want her there when I arrive. His eyes stayed on the screen, on her sleeping face. What's her name? A pause while Burton pulled up the file. Tracy Scott. 26. Started with Morrison 6 weeks ago. Works 3 jobs, nursing home, restaurant, and Morrison. Lives in Englewood with her younger sister who has, Burton's voice changed slightly. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Experimental treatment. No insurance coverage. Ah. So that's why she looked half dead. She was desperate. Miho understood desperate. Desperate people did unexpected things. Dangerous things. Interesting things. Book me on the next flight to Chicago, Miho said. And Burton? Make sure she's still there when I arrive. Whatever it takes. Tracy woke to the sound of a ruler tapping against mahogany. Tap. 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 Her eyes flew open, and her body jerked upright so fast her neck cracked. A man stood in front of the desk. No, not just a man. A presence. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of build that came from martial arts training rather than a gym. Sharp, elegant features that would have been beautiful if they weren't arranged in an expression of absolute ice. Black hair styled perfectly despite the early hour. Black suit that probably cost more than Tracy's car. And eyes. God, his eyes. Dark, intense, and currently looking at her like she was a bug he was deciding whether to crush or study. This was Kong Miho. And Tracy had been sleeping in his chair. She shot to her feet, stumbling slightly. I'm so sorry. I wasn't supposed to, I just needed a minute and You were sleeping. His voice was smooth, accented, and absolutely terrifying in its calm. In my chair. In my office. In my home. I know. I know, and I'm so sorry. It was unprofessional and... How long? What? How long were you sleeping in my chair? He was still holding the ruler. She noticed his hands, elegant like his face, but with scarred knuckles that told stories of violence. Be precise. Tracy glanced at her watch. 6:32 a.m. She'd been cleaning since midnight. She'd sat down at... God. Almost 3 hours. Something flickered in his eyes. 3 hours. You slept in my personal space for 3 hours. I didn't mean to fall asleep for that long. But you meant to sit in my chair. His voice dropped lower. You knew the rules. Morrison trains all their employees. Don't touch the furniture. Don't disturb anything. Maintain perfect order. He took a step closer. And yet you deliberately chose to violate my space. Tracy's fear was rapidly being replaced by exhaustion-fueled frustration. Yes, she'd screwed up. But the way he was looking at her, like she'd committed some unforgivable sin, was starting to piss her off. I was tired, she said. I'd been awake for 25 hours. I made a mistake. Fire me if you want, but don't act like I committed murder by sitting in your precious chair. The silence that followed was deafening. Miho's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. Became dangerous. You have no idea what you've done, he said quietly. This room is sanitized daily. Temperature controlled. Air filtered. Everything in here is positioned exactly as it should be. And you, he looked at her like she was a fascinating specimen. You contaminated it. Your skin cells. Your hair. Your breath. Your very existence disrupted my order. Oh. Oh God. This wasn't just wealth eccentricity. This was actual, clinical OCD. Tracy's anger deflated. I'm sorry. I understand if you need to fire me. Fire you? Miho laughed, but there was no humor in it. No. Firing you would be letting you off easy. You violated my space. My sanctuary. The one place in this world that belongs entirely to me. He set the ruler down on the desk with precise care. So now, Miss Scott, you're going to pay for that violation. Pay? I don't have money. I know exactly how much money you have. $237 in your checking account. $0 in savings. $47,000 in medical debt from your sister's treatment. 3 jobs that barely cover her medication, let alone the experimental protocol that might actually save her life. His eyes never left hers. You're drowning, Miss Scott. And I'm offering you a life raft. Tracy's heart was pounding. What do you want? Your freedom. The words hung in the air between them. I have a proposition, Miho continued. You'll quit your other jobs. You'll work for me exclusively as my personal household manager. Live here. Maintain my home according to my exact specifications. 6 days a week, 14 hours a day, for 2 years. That's slavery. That's employment. With benefits. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, and turned the screen toward her. Your sister's treatment will be fully covered. The experimental protocol. The specialists. Everything. I'll also pay off your existing medical debt and provide you a private room here in the penthouse. Tracy stared at the number on the screen. The total cost of Shanice's full treatment plan. $340,000. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? Because you touched my chair. Because you contaminated my space. Because now the only way to restore order is to make you mine. His smile was sharp as a blade. You disrupted my world, Miss Scott. So now you're going to become part of it. Under my control. Following my rules. Living according to my order. And if I say no? Then I have Morrison fire you. I blacklist you from every cleaning service in Chicago. I make sure you never work in the city again. His voice was still calm, almost pleasant. And your sister's next treatment, the one scheduled for next week, doesn't happen. Because you can't afford it. It wasn't a choice. It was a trap dressed up as an offer. Tracy looked into his eyes and saw no mercy there. No flexibility. Just cold calculation and an obsessive need for control. She thought of Shanice in that hospital bed, so small and fragile, saying, "It's okay, Nana. We'll figure it out." She thought of working herself to death across 3 jobs and still watching her sister die slowly. She thought about having 2 years of hell but knowing Shanice would live. 2 years, she said. And you cover everything. All of it. Everything. And after 2 years, I'm free. Contract ends. Contract ends. Tracy took a deep breath. Looked around the prison of perfection she was about to cage herself in. And extended her hand. Deal. Okay, I need everyone to stop and breathe because this is insane. Miho really just bought her freedom over a chair? We're only getting started, and this story is about to get so much darker and so much more complicated. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button because you're going to want to see how this twisted romance unfolds. Now let's get back to the story. The contract was 47 pages long. Tracy read every word while Miho watched her with those unreadable eyes, sitting perfectly still in a chair that wasn't the contaminated one. Burton, his head of security, stood by the door like a statue. The terms were insane. She would live in the penthouse's staff quarters, a private bedroom and bathroom that she was responsible for maintaining. She would wake at 5:45 a.m. every morning. Shower using specific products that were scent neutral and hypoallergenic. Dress in provided uniforms that were laundered according to exact specifications. Her day would be scheduled minute by minute. Cleaning. Cooking. Organizing. Everything according to detailed protocols that Miho had developed over years. She couldn't have visitors. Couldn't bring personal items that didn't fit his aesthetic standards. Couldn't rearrange anything without explicit permission. She would eat meals at designated times. Sleep at designated times. Her entire existence would be controlled, measured, perfected. This is prison, Tracy said, looking up from the contract. This is order, Miho corrected. And you'll learn to appreciate it. I'll learn to hate you. Perhaps. But your sister will live. Isn't that worth a little hatred? Tracy wanted to throw the contract in his face. Wanted to tell him to take his money and his control and shove it somewhere extremely uncomfortable. But Shanice's face flashed in her mind. Shanice laughing before she got sick. Shanice saying she wanted to go to college and study marine biology. Shanice deserving a future. Tracy signed. The staff quarters were actually nice, a bedroom with an attached bathroom, both decorated in the same minimalist style as the rest of the penthouse. White walls. Gray furniture. Everything clean and perfect and soulless. This is your space, Miho said, standing in the doorway but not entering. She noticed he wouldn't cross the threshold. You'll maintain it according to the cleaning protocols in Section 7 of your manual. Any personal items must be approved by me first. Can I at least have pictures of my sister? He considered this. 1 photograph. Framed. Specific placement on the nightstand. 1 photograph. Of my dying sister. Tracy laughed bitterly. You're really generous. I'm keeping her alive. That's generous enough. He pulled out his phone. Your first grocery delivery arrives in 30 minutes. You'll prepare dinner according to the recipe in your manual. 7 p.m. exactly. I eat alone in the dining room. You'll serve and then clean up. What am I making? Bulgogi. Kimchi fried rice. Mayakguk. I don't know how to make any of that. The recipes are detailed. Follow them exactly. His eyes held hers. And Miss Scott? In this house, there is no room for approximation. No, close enough. No, good try. Everything is either perfect or unacceptable. Understand? Yes. Yes, what? The power play was obvious and degrading. But Tracy swallowed her pride. Yes, Mr. Kong. Better. He turned to leave, then paused. Your sister will be transferred to a private room at Northwestern tomorrow. The experimental protocol starts next week. Dr. Denzel is the best oncologist in the country. Shanice will receive excellent care. And then he was gone, leaving Tracy standing in her beautiful cage. Cooking Korean food from scratch when you'd never done it before was a special kind of hell. Tracy followed the recipes exactly, but exact didn't mean easy. The bulgogi required marinating the beef for precisely 45 minutes. The kimchi fried rice needed specific ingredients she'd never heard of. The mayakguk, seaweed soup, required techniques she had to YouTube while trying not to panic about the ticking clock. At 6:58 p.m., she plated everything with shaking hands. It looked okay? Maybe? She wasn't sure. Korean food wasn't exactly her expertise. She carried the dishes to the dining room, a stark, beautiful space with a table that seated 12 but only ever served one. Miho was already seated, reading something on his tablet. He didn't look up when she entered. 7:01, he said. I'm sorry, Late is unacceptable. The schedule exists for a reason. Tracy set the plates down in front of him, careful not to make noise. She started to leave, but his voice stopped her. Stay. I need you to observe how the meal should look. You'll need to replicate this presentation. So she stood there, awkward and uncomfortable, while he examined the food like a scientist with a specimen. He picked up his chopsticks, she noticed his hands again, how precisely he held them, and took a small bite of bulgogi. Chewed. Swallowed. Set the chopsticks down. The meat is overcooked by approximately 30 seconds. The marinade ratio is off, too much soy sauce. The rice is acceptable but the kimchi isn't distributed evenly. He looked up at her finally. The soup is actually correct. How did you manage that? I followed the recipe. Then why couldn't you follow the others? Because I'm exhausted and stressed and I've never made Korean food in my life and you're a terrifying perfectionist who makes me want to scream, Tracy thought. I'll do better tomorrow, she said. You will. Because if the quality doesn't improve by the end of the week, I'll dock your sister's medication budget. The casual cruelty of it took her breath away. You said you'd cover everything. I said I'd cover everything if you fulfilled your duties. Perfection is a duty, Miss Scott. He took another bite. This is edible. Barely. Tomorrow will be better. Now clear the table and clean the kitchen. Counters must be sanitized 3 times. Floors mopped twice. All dishes hand-washed, the dishwasher doesn't clean to my standards. Tracy cleared the table in silence, swallowing the rage that threatened to choke her. In the kitchen, she scrubbed and cleaned and sanitized until her hands were raw. And she thought about Shanice getting the treatment she needed. That was worth this. That had to be worth this. The days blurred together into a routine of exhausting precision. Wake at 5:45. Shower. Dress. Begin cleaning protocol at 6:15. Every surface. Every corner. Moving through the penthouse like a ghost, erasing any evidence of life. Miho would emerge from his bedroom at 7 o'clock exactly. She'd have coffee ready, French press, specific beans, exact temperature, served in a specific cup. He never thanked her. Breakfast at 7:30. Usually something simple, eggs, rice, kimchi. He'd eat while reading news on his tablet, never acknowledging her presence unless something was wrong. And something was always wrong. The eggs were 30 seconds overcooked. The coffee was half a degree too hot. She'd missed a spot on the counter. The towel in his bathroom was folded incorrectly. Every mistake was noted. Logged. Saved as evidence of her inadequacy. After breakfast, he'd leave for his office downtown, some legitimate business that was definitely a front for less legitimate activities. Tracy would spend the day cleaning, organizing, preparing for his return. Lunch she ate alone in her room. 15 minutes exactly. Food provided from the grocery delivery, but only things Miho approved. No junk food. No soul food that reminded her of home. Everything healthy and bland and controlled. Afternoons were for deep cleaning. Dusting books. Organizing closets. Polishing surfaces that were already perfect. Dinner at 7 p.m. More Korean food she'd learned to make from obsessive recipe following. More critique. More silent meals where she stood like a servant while he ate. Evenings were hers until 10 p.m. She'd video call Shanice, who looked better already after just 2 weeks of proper treatment. They'd talk about everything except where Tracy was living and why. Then sleep. And the cycle would begin again. It was suffocating. But Shanice was improving. That was what mattered. 3 weeks in, something shifted. Tracy was cleaning Miho's bedroom, the most nerve-wracking task because he had the most rules about this space. The bed had to be made with hospital corners. The closet organized by color and type, every hanger exactly 2 inches apart. His bathroom required specific products arranged in specific order. She was dusting his nightstand when she noticed something she'd never seen before. A photograph. It was small, in a simple silver frame, positioned at an exact angle. The photo showed a younger Miho, maybe early 20s, with 2 other people. A woman who must have been his mother, and a little girl who looked about 7. The little girl was laughing. Miho was smiling, actually smiling, soft and genuine and nothing like the Ice King he was now. "You're staring." Tracy jumped, spinning around. Miho stood in the doorway. He must have come home early. His tie was loosened slightly, and there was something dangerous in his expression. "I'm sorry, I was just invading my privacy. I was dusting. I didn't mean." He crossed the room in 3 strides, and suddenly he was close. Too close. She could smell his cologne, something expensive and cedar-like. Could see the exhaustion around his eyes that made him seem almost human. "That photograph is none of your concern," he said quietly. "I know. I'm sorry." But he didn't move away. Just stood there, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, staring at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're afraid of me," he observed. "Yes." "Good. Fear keeps people in line." But something in his voice suggested he didn't actually like that answer. "Are you afraid I'll hurt you?" "I'm afraid you'll hurt my sister by cutting off her treatment." "I wouldn't do that." "You threatened to." "I threaten a lot of things. Doesn't mean I follow through." He reached past her, and she flinched. But he was only adjusting the photograph, moving it a millimeter to the left. "My sister died when she was 7. Leukemia. Same as Shanice." The revelation stunned her into silence. "My mother spent everything trying to save her. Experimental treatments. Clinical trials. All of it." His voice was flat, emotionless. "It didn't work. Ji-young died anyway. And my mother." He didn't finish that sentence. "I'm sorry," Tracy said, and meant it. "Don't be. It was 20 years ago. I barely remember what grief feels like anymore." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "But I remember what desperation feels like. What it's like to watch someone you love dying and being powerless to stop it. That's why I'm covering Shanice's treatment. Not because I'm generous. Because I understand." It was the most human thing he'd ever said to her. "Thank you," Tracy whispered. "Don't thank me. I'm still keeping you prisoner here. Still controlling every aspect of your life. Still using your desperation against you." His smile was sharp. "I'm not a good man, Miss Scott. Don't mistake one moment of empathy for redemption." Then he was gone, leaving her standing in his bedroom with 1,000 questions and the strange, uncomfortable feeling that Kang Miho was far more complicated than the monster she'd been telling herself he was. The nightmares started in week 5. Tracy would wake up gasping, drowning in dreams of endless cleaning. Of Miho's cold eyes watching her fail. Of Shanice dying because Tracy had folded a towel wrong. She'd lie in her perfect white bed in her perfect gray room and feel like she was suffocating. One night, she couldn't take it anymore. She got up, pulled on her robe, and slipped out of her room. The penthouse was dark except for ambient lighting from the city outside. She made her way to the living room, to the massive windows that overlooked Chicago. And found Miho already there. He stood in front of the windows in pajama pants and a t-shirt, the most casual she'd ever seen him. His hair was messy. He was barefoot. He looked human. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. "No. Me neither." He glanced at her. "The nightmares are bad tonight." "You have nightmares?" "Every night. PTSD from my sister's death. OCD from the trauma of losing control." He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. "I dream about disorder. About everything I've built falling apart. About contamination I can't clean. It's exhausting." Tracy moved to stand beside him, keeping a respectful distance. "Is that why you're like this? The control, the perfection, it's all to manage the OCD? The OCD is who I am. The control is how I survive." He was quiet for a moment. "Do you know why I really brought you here?" "Because I sat in your chair." "No. I brought you here because when I saw you sleeping in that chair, you looked peaceful. Content. Like you'd found a moment of rest in the middle of chaos." His voice dropped. "I haven't felt peaceful in 20 years. And I wanted to know what that felt like." Thought maybe if I controlled you, controlled your environment, I could create that for myself. That's messed up. I know. He turned to her fully. I'm using you to try to fix something broken in me. It's not fair. It's not right. But it's the truth. The honesty was startling. Tracy studied his face in the dim light and saw something she hadn't noticed before. Loneliness. This man who controlled everything, who lived in his perfect prison, was completely alone. The photograph in your room, Tracy said carefully. Your mother, where is she now? Dead. Suicide. 6 months after Ji-young died. His voice was absolutely flat. She couldn't live with the loss. So she didn't. Miho. Don't try to make me feel better about it. I've had 20 years to process. I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Anyone could see that. Can I ask you something? Tracy said. You're going to anyway. Why the mafia life? You're clearly brilliant. You could have been anything. I'm good at controlling things. Territories, businesses, people. It's logical. He smiled that sharp smile. And the violence satisfies something dark in me. When the OCD gets too loud, when the need for order becomes unbearable, breaking someone who's threatened my organization quiets it. For a little while. It should have terrified her. This admission that he found peace in violence. But instead, Tracy just felt sad. That's not peace, she said softly. That's just replacing one pain with another. Perhaps. But it's the only peace I know. They stood there in the darkness, two broken people in a beautiful cage, and something shifted between them. Something delicate and dangerous. I should go back to bed, Tracy said. Yes. But neither of them moved. Tracy. It was the first time he'd used her first name. I'm not going to apologize for bringing you here. For using you. But I want you to know. I'm glad it's you. If I had to have someone invading my space, disrupting my order. I'm glad it's someone who understands desperation. Who fights for the people she loves. That almost sounded like a compliment. Don't get used to it. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth. I don't hate you as much as I thought I would. That's the Stockholm Syndrome talking. Maybe. Or maybe you're not quite as much of a monster as you pretend to be. His laugh was soft, almost genuine. Don't bet on it. Week 7 brought the first real crisis. Tracy was in the kitchen preparing lunch when her phone rang. Shanice's hospital. Miss Scott? This is Dr. Chen. We need to discuss Shanice's latest scans. Tracy's blood went cold. What's wrong? The experimental treatment is working remarkably well. Better than we projected. But we found something in her latest blood work that requires an additional medication. It's not covered under the current protocol. How much? $15,000. Due by Friday or we'll have to delay her next round of treatment. The phone slipped from Tracy's fingers. $15,000. She didn't have $15. All her accounts were empty, she'd used everything to cover Shanice's pre-Miho treatment. And her contract with Miho didn't give her any salary, just room and board and Shanice's covered treatment. She picked up the phone with shaking hands. I'll figure something out. Don't stop her treatment. After she hung up, Tracy stood in the perfect kitchen and felt her world crumbling. She could ask Miho. But he'd said he'd cover everything, and he'd interpret this additional medication as outside the original agreement. He'd use it as leverage for something. More time on her contract. More control. More chains. Or she could find the money elsewhere. But how? She had no job, no savings, no way to earn. Bad news? Tracy spun to find Miho leaning against the doorframe, watching her. No. Everything's fine. You're lying. You're terrible at it. He moved into the kitchen, and she noticed he was carrying something. A folder. Dr. Denzel called me first. Wanted to make sure the additional medication was approved before worrying you. You knew? I know everything that happens with Shanice's treatment. I'm paying for it. He set the folder on the counter. The medication is already approved. It'll be administered tomorrow. No cost to you. Relief flooded through her so intensely she had to grip the counter. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. He opened the folder, revealing documents. The medication is expensive. $15,000 now, and likely ongoing for the next 6 months. That's $90,000 total added to what I'm already covering. Here it comes, Tracy thought. The price. I'll add 6 months to your contract, she said, defeated. That's what you want, right? No. He pushed the documents toward her. I want you to understand something. This isn't a negotiation. This isn't me using your sister's life to extract more from you. I told you I'd cover everything, and I meant everything. The medication is approved. Period. Tracy stared at him, confused. Then why are you telling me this? Because I need you to stop thinking of me as just a monster. He said it quietly, almost vulnerable. Yes, I brought you here under coercion. Yes, I'm controlling and demanding and probably psychotic. But I'm not going to let your sister die to punish you. That's not who I am. Then who are you? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. I thought I knew. Thought I was just this, perfectly controlled machine. But then you came. And you sleep in my space and cook in my kitchen and exist in my line of sight every single day. And I'm starting to feel things I haven't felt in years. It's disorienting. What kind of things? Protective things. Possessive things. His eyes met hers. Dangerous things. The air between them changed. Became charged. Miho. I'm attracted to you. Obsessively. I think about you constantly. When you're cleaning, when you're cooking, when you're just existing. He said it like a confession, like something shameful. I lie awake at night thinking about you sleeping just down the hall. It's making my OCD worse because I can't control these feelings. Can't organize them. Can't make them fit into my perfect order. Tracy's heart was pounding. I'm your employee. Your prisoner. I know. Which is why this is completely inappropriate. Why I shouldn't be saying any of this. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting. He cut himself off, jaw clenching. Wanting what? Tracy heard herself ask. To touch you. To know what it feels like to have someone in my space by choice rather than compulsion. To see if you could want me back, even though I've done nothing but control and threaten you since the day we met. This was insane. He was her captor. The man who'd blackmailed her into servitude. Who criticized every meal and logged every mistake. But he'd also saved Shanice's life. Had just approved $90,000 in additional treatment without asking for anything in return. Was standing here admitting vulnerability instead of wielding power. I don't know what I feel about you, Tracy admitted. Sometimes I hate you. Sometimes I want to understand you. And sometimes. She took a breath. Sometimes when you look at me like you're looking at me right now, I feel something I definitely shouldn't feel for my employer. What do you feel? Curious. About who you are beneath all this control. About what you'd be like if you let yourself just be. Miho moved closer, and Tracy didn't step back. I don't know how to just be, he said. Everything in my life is calculated. Measured. Controlled. Except this. This thing I feel when I'm near you, I can't control it. Can't categorize it. It's chaos. And chaos terrifies me. Maybe that's good. Maybe you need some chaos. Maybe I need you. The words hung between them, heavy with implications. Tracy knew she should step back. Should remind him of the power dynamic. Should protect herself from this dangerous, complicated man who was offering her nothing but more complications. But instead, she asked, if I wasn't working for you, if we'd met some other way, what would you do right now? I'd ask if I could touch you. Just once. To see if the reality feels as good as the fantasy. And if I said yes? His eyes darkened. Then I'd probably discover I'm even more obsessed with you than I thought. Which would be problematic. Why? Because I don't do things halfway. If I touch you and it's everything I've imagined, I won't want to stop. Won't be able to stop. I'll want all of you. Want to consume you. Possess you in ways that have nothing to do with contracts and everything to do with this thing burning in my chest. It should have scared her. The intensity. The obsession. But Tracy had been living in fear for years. Fear of losing Shanice. Fear of poverty. Fear of failing. Maybe it was time to fear something different. Something that might actually feel good. Touch me, she said. Miho's breath caught. Tracy. Just once. Like you said. So we both know. He stared at her for 3 heartbeats. Then slowly, like approaching something fragile, he raised his hand. His fingers brushed her cheek. And the world shifted. His touch was gentle. Reverent. His fingers traced the line of her jaw, her cheekbone, like he was memorizing her through sensation. You're so warm, he whispered. So alive. Tracy's eyes fluttered closed. When was the last time someone had touched her like this? Like she was precious? His thumb brushed her lower lip, and she gasped softly. I want to kiss you, Miho said, his voice rough. Want it so badly I can't think straight. But I can't. Not while you work for me. Not while there's this power imbalance. It wouldn't be right. Tracy opened her eyes. What if I kissed you? Tracy. You said you can't. Because of power. But what if I chose to? What if I wanted to see what this feels like? You'd be making a mistake. Maybe. But it would be my mistake. My choice. She reached up, put her hand over his where it still cupped her face. For 7 weeks, you've controlled everything in my life. Let me control this. She saw the moment he broke. Saw the rigid control slip, replaced by raw need. If you do this, he said, there's no going back. I won't be able to see you the same way. Won't be able to keep this professional distance. Good. Because I'm tired of distance. And then she kissed him. His lips were soft and warm, and for 3 seconds he froze, surprised, overwhelmed. Then he was kissing her back with an intensity that stole her breath. His hands slid into her hair, gentle but possessive. His body pressed against hers, pinning her to the counter. It wasn't a perfect kiss. It was desperate, hungry, years of loneliness pouring into a single moment of connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Miho rested his forehead against hers. We can't do this, he said, even as his hand stayed in her hair. I know. It's completely inappropriate. I know. I'm still your employer. Still the person who coerced you into being here. I know. Tracy pulled back to look at him. But I'm also choosing this. Choosing you. Maybe that's messed up. Maybe I'm dealing with my trauma in the worst possible way. But Miho. I see you. The real you. And I want to know what happens if we stop fighting this. What happens is I become even more obsessed with you. Possessive. Controlling. My OCD will latch onto you as something to protect and manage. So let it. I'm not fragile. I can handle your intensity. You don't know what you're asking. Then show me. He stared at her, war playing out in his expression. Control versus desire. Order versus chaos. Chaos won. I'm going to kiss you again, he said. And this time, I'm not stopping until I've learned every single way you taste. Promises, promises. His laugh was dark and wanting. And then his mouth was on hers again, and Tracy let herself fall into the beautiful disaster of wanting Kang Miho. I am screaming. Are you screaming? Because Tracy and Miho just crossed a line there is no coming back from. But here's the thing, we have so much more story to tell. Because that kiss? That's just the beginning. We still have the mafia drama catching up with them. Shanice finding out what her sister sacrificed. Miho's enemies using Tracy as a weakness. The question of whether their relationship can exist outside of this contract. And a plot twist I promise you won't see coming. So here's what I need from you. Smash that like button if you want part 2. And I mean really smash it, we need 5,000 views to make this a series. Subscribe and turn on notifications because part 2 is going to be darker, more intense, and absolutely devastating. And tell me, do you think Miho can actually have a healthy relationship with Tracy, or is his obsession going to destroy them both? Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Your support means everything. I'll see you in part 2. If you want it. Now go drink some water, get some sleep, and prepare for part 2 to wreck you completely. I love you all. Bye.